fighting out of the blue corner from Lakewood Church.
That's right.
He's a surgeon by day, pastor by night. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Paul Osteen.
Good to be here for us.
Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, glad to.
So I was doing a lot of homework in preparation for this, and I already knew a little bit about you from having known you a little bit, but practicing surgeon for 20 years.
Yeah. Yeah, I trained in Arkansas, and I practiced in Little Rock for almost 20 years, and I loved it and was really, really busy, and had a change of career path, in 1999, and moved to Houston, and now work at a church, and that allows me, I oversee the missions department, that allows me to go and do missions, and that's something I'm passionate about. So, God put it together in a great way.
I've heard you talk about on some other interviews that I've seen you do, hearing that calling to go and answer that calling. And do callings sound different to different people, and how do you know it's God talking to you versus some desire that you have to go do something?
Yeah, those are hard questions. I can just tell you that, from my faith perspective, Jesus said his sheep know his voice. And so I just have to rely on the fact that I recognize his voice. And, Frost, I'm not like somebody that God talks to all the time.
Okay.
But at those critical junctures, I feel like he gave me somebody called a calling one time an inner abiding persuasion. And it's just something that just won't go away. And so when I was happy in my practice in Arkansas, great church, great family, great, home, great community. But when I was driving home from my dad's memorial service, I just had this overwhelming impression that I was supposed to leave my practice and move to Houston. And it made no sense to my head, but it made perfect sense to my heart. And so to me, that was just God talking to me. And, that was 26 years ago. And what he's done and, what's evolved in my life since then has been, beyond anything that I could even ever have imagined.
Right?
Yeah.
Did you ever as a kid or anything think maybe I'll get into ministry or?
Never.
Never.
No, I always wanted to be a doctor, wanted to be a surgeon since I was a kid. My mom's a nurse, and when I was a kid, I found her bandage scissors. I was about 6 years old, and when I put them in my hand, I knew that was what I was supposed
kidding.
to do. So I was laser focused on what I wanted to do. So
as a kid, you knew you wanted to be a surgeon?
Absolutely. Well, I wanted to be a doctor.
You
I
wanted to be a
wasn't
doctor.
sure until I got into medical school, 3rd and 4th year, that this is what I want to do, surgery. So.
And what made you kind of get into surgery?
I like what I do with my hands. I like to do stuff with my hands. I love the camaraderie of a team in surgery. I like to be hyper-focused on one thing. I can't spin a bunch of plates at one time. I like to be hyper-focused on one thing and do that very well.
Yeah.
And so,
That's a good attribute for a surgeon.
Yeah. The calmest, most peaceful place for me is in an operating room. And for other people, it may be blood and guts, but for me, it's peace and, nobody's bothering me. I get to do what I was trained to do. So,
well, that's pretty cool. So as a kid, you want to be a doctor. You want to be a surgeon. You grow up in this cool church environment,
right.
And then God uses you to do that for 20 years, and then you come back and you're still doing it while doing stuff at the church as well.
Absolutely, yeah. I oversee the missions department at the church, and also for many, many years, I was one of the teaching pastors and one of the kind of administrative pastors.
Mm-hmm.
Now I'm to the age now we're passing the baton a bit, but
cool.
I'm still very deeply involved. Yeah.
Yeah, still deeply involved with the church, but getting to use what you love. So would you say you're having a bigger impact now than you would have if you'd have stayed in Little Rock doing?
That's a great question. I think just by, our church has really grown and it has a lot of influence. And I just think because of that influence, probably, I have a little bit more influence now than I would have just staying in practice. But I think the key, from my faith perspective, Frost, is you got to be doing what God's called you to do. He'd called me to stay in surgery for 40 years. I would have been happy doing that and been influential there. He just moved me, and I feel like the impact is probably great.
You're just riding the wave.
Yeah, I'm just riding the wave. Yeah, that's right.
That's pretty cool. Do you find, sort of back to the calling question, because I was even talking to my wife about this morning. We were talking about you coming on and fun questions to ask you and that sort of thing. Do you feel like, people that maybe, I heard one time that, when you're going through the hard times, your goal should be to get kind of quiet and listen.
Right.
Right. And if you map that on to whether it's prayer or meditation or, you hear people, something in nature, Moses saw a burning bush, Are there practices people can do to sort of learn to listen and hear their calling?
Yeah, I think you hit on something really big. We're in a very busy culture. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. I'm 70 this year, and I just think this is a big experiment. The connectivity that we have, and that constant connectivity, I think, kind of goes against really that still small voice inside. And so I think any practices that you can do to quiet yourself and to listen, and to get in a place where you're receptive to what you might hear, I think those are important. I like to tell people, I have my devotional time every morning, but for years I had a farm in Magnolia, and I felt closer to God when I was driving my tractor mowing a hayfield.
Mm-hmm.
It's just I was in nature, just that drumming of the engine and back and forth, and boy, nothing spoke to my heart like that. So I think you have to find your sacred spaces.
Right.
And those sacred spaces are places where God can talk to you. But that's not to say he can't talk to you in the middle of a crisis, in the middle of whatever you're going through. And sometimes, Frost, like when I felt like he spoke to me driving home, I can tell you where it happened. So I wasn't even prepared for it. But I think the key is just to recognize when that voice it doesn't come to your head, it comes kind of to your heart.
Uh-huh.
And so to me, that was the key, is just listening to your heart, even when it didn't make sense to your head.
Do you think that maybe this might be kind of out there, right? So bear with me, but maybe he's speaking to us, and sometimes we're just not listening.
Yeah.
And it takes us getting to that quiet place to listen.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree with that. And just secting out, is this just, like for me, was it grief over my dad? Was it burnout? Was I burned out? Was I, sorting through those things is difficult.
It was a time in your life where you were sorting through that, I'd imagine.
Exactly. And
yeah.
I had a bunch of people that I talked to about this, and not everybody was for this. And so it made me really, really, go slow. I think that's the key. Go slow. If it's big directional decisions like that. I went very slow. It took 6 months to make a decision, but I continued to have that peace inside when I thought about what I was doing, even though it was scary, even though it was uncomfortable. So I just followed that peace,
So you over that 6 months, you just kept talking to your loved ones and people whose advice you liked, and
exactly,
and kicked it around until you knew for sure this is the move.
Yeah, and again, just from a little bit of a faith perspective, I called my sister one time before I told anybody. She was working at the church, and I called her up. Her name's Lisa. I said, here's the deal. And I proposed this outrageous idea. And she was very calm, and she said, and again, my faith perspective, she said, do you feel like God spoke to you? And I said, yes. She said, then you only have one choice, that's to obey.
That's pretty cool.
And, that just clarified things to me, because either I take this path, even though it's scary and I was going to lose a lot of money and I didn't know where it was going to go, or do I keep doing what's comfortable? And so I want to have an obedient heart as far as my faith journey. And so that clarified it for me, made it a lot easier.
Well, that's pretty cool. And especially you having grown up in a family, I use the analogy, if your granddad was a plumber and your dad was a plumber, and you're going to be a better plumber than someone just getting into it, right?
Yeah.
And you guys having, generations now of folks in the church world,
right,
that y'all had a culture and a family culture to be able to talk. That's not a normal conversation, I would say, that people have that, on a daily basis, unless they're in that environment.
I agree with that. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I was very blessed to be raised in a home of faith, and a genuine faith too. One that wasn't complicated, one that was simple, one that was attractive.
Yeah.
And a lot of people don't have that, and I was very fortunate.
Yeah. For me, the quiet space is working out.
Yeah.
So help you here at the gym, we've got, 50 people in a class all wrestling each other, and that's fun and therapeutic, and there's camaraderie and good vibes and fitness, all of it. But I when I'm in my garage and I've got the headphones in and I'm sweating, it might be midnight, for me, that's the place where I start to be able to listen and figure out, direction. Like you said, I I can think of a couple times in my life where I felt like God was like, one was like when I was contemplating getting married to my wife.
Yeah.
And I
Huge decision.
I felt like this, you know how you get the chills?
Yeah.
I had one of those that almost knocked me out of the shower. I mean,
Yeah.
it was like, whoa. I was like, okay, like that's, so sometimes I wonder, you know, when you get you know, what is that, you know? Any thoughts on that?
What's the feeling exactly?
You know, when you get
Afraid?
my mom used to, not afraid, but like my mom used to say, when a rabbit runs over your grave. I don't know if you ever heard that.
Never heard that.
But you know, just like when you, it's just sort of like, for me, it's like, oh, I'm paying attention now.
Yeah.
So
You're in your sacred space and you're listening.
yeah. Right. I sort of snap into it. But okay, so those are big decisions. Anything, just like you said, your daily devotional. Do you, when you're in that space, do you? I imagine there's opportunities and things coming at you all the time, whether it's in the medical space or even doing a podcast like this. How do you, decide and listen to what your day or your week or your month is going to be like?
Great question. Great question. I have some pillars, some things that I do all the time. My responsibilities at the church, I usually spend 3 to 4 months a year in Africa, and so those are big things. But the rest of the time, I pray about it and find out if I have peace about it. And a lot of it is in a relationship. The reason I'm over here, Frost, honestly, is because we have a relationship. And you know what? I like that relationship, and I want to continue that relationship. And so I do things from a relational standpoint to help people. But, I pray every day. I don't pray that God would speak to me. I pray that I would listen.
Okay.
Because I think he's always speaking to us. He's always kind of directing our paths. And so I just pray that I have a sensitive heart to listen. And when I got your email to ask for this, I prayed about it, thought about it. And I thought, this will be something good. And so this is a big rock for me this week.
That's cool.
That's kind of the way I do things. And I think if they go against my, a lot of people try to push you into something that you're not really called to. Mm-hmm. And then other people want you to be invested in their vision that necessarily I may not be called to be invested in their decision. So I have to sort through those things, and I do it very prayerfully and, also with kindness. I don't ever want to disappoint people, but you have to say no sometimes. So
yeah, that's cool. That's something we could all map on. Okay, so shifting gears. Going back to working with family. I've got a lot of friends in family businesses, and some of it goes well, some of it doesn't go well. Yeah. Any best practices or tips you could share with folks?
Yeah, I guess you're talking about me working with my brother and my sister and my mom who passed away 6 weeks ago. Yeah, it's we grew up in a very close family. And I think the reason it works between all of our family members now is that we each have our lane. Mm-hmm. Nobody's stumbling over it. Everybody is doing what they're good at. And there's no competition. Mm. And so I think that's one of the things that really, really helps. And then there's clear communication, and we know who's in charge of this, who's in charge of that. And I think that's key. Because, if we were competing for attention or competing for in our roles, I don't think it would work. But I think like Joel has his role and he does it extremely well. Lisa has hers, I have mine, my mom had hers. So I think it's really clear. And I think the other things we try to have a consensus as far as direction's concerned. And Joel's very open to that, always wanting advice and wanting, input. And so I think that makes it easier. So you don't feel like, somebody else is just steering the ship and you have no input.
So y'all kick around the big decisions together. And then stay in your lanes.
Especially early on now, Joel's really taken the helm and he has more time to do leadership than he did when he first started. So he is an amazing leader. I think too, Frost, the culture we created there at the church, my parents started it 50 years ago, and that is a culture of unqualified kindness. And when you operate in that kindness to each other, kindness to you, the employees, but it just creates a space where just a good space where it's not dog eat dog. It's not I'm trying to run over you. It's there's unqualified kindness even in our operations there at the church. So I think that's a key.
So then when there is a disagreement or something, nobody's getting horsey. Everybody's...
No, not at all. I think the other thing too is that one of the things that is so healthy about our church, again, I'm not bragging on our church, but I think Joel's created a culture where family is very important. Mm-hmm. And we need to work hard at the church, but we also have to have our family. So, very often wives are involved in what we do. Like my wife works with me. A lot of the pastors' wives work with them in their ministry. And I think the other thing is just the ability to say, I can't do that. That's not looked down upon. Some places that's looked down upon where you go, I can't put 80 hours a week in this week.
Right.
And, just the fact that he models a healthy
work-life balance.
Yeah, work-life balance and his own personal stuff. I think that just kind of drips down to everybody else to say, well, if Joel can do it, we can do that too.
Yeah.
Family's important for him. If he can take care of himself, he can say no, we can do that too.
That's really cool. I love that, especially for a guy like you, that both the church and the hospital are things that are extremely important, and there's a never-ending line of patients or people that would love your time, whether it's in the OR or spiritually. And so, but learning to say, I have these limits. These are the hours in which I can do this work, even though it's maybe the most important work.
Right.
But you got to get your sleep and your exercise and spend the family time and all that stuff.
And my kids are grown now, but I thank God that I ate almost every meal with them in the evening, not lunch, obviously, but we prioritized family time and we did things together as a family. And so, but back on that, I'll just say this, and I think a lot of people struggle with balance in their life, and I did too. And I can tell you, Frost, I never had any work-life balance or any health balance or any marital balance until I was able to say no. And that was the hardest thing for me because I like to please people.
Yeah.
So if Carrie Pennington calls me from Warren, Arkansas and says, can you take care of this pastor who's got a surgical problem, and I'm not on call and I hadn't seen my family in 5 days, before I would say, of course I'll take care of him, send him. I'd love to take him. But as I learned balance, saying no to people, just say, Carrie, I can't take care of this patient, but one of my partners can.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden it just, being able to say no has really given me some balance. And so I know a lot of people struggle with that, and it's especially people that like to please people all the time. So it's been very helpful for me to learn that, and it translates into what I do now. I'm very careful about what I say yes to and what I say no to.
So for somebody that does struggle with saying no to people, what's it like after you start to learn to say no?
Yeah, it's freedom.
It's freedom.
It's freedom. It's realizing, in the right way, they don't have power over me. I have power over myself. I can do what I want to do. And if these are the big rocks in my life, my family, my kids, my devotional time, my walk with God, my work, all those things are sacred. And it allows me to say, okay, if it's peripheral to that, I'll say no. And it was very scary the first couple of times I did it. I thought, well, number one, I'm going to lose business. Number two, I'm going to lose my reputation. You know what his response was when I told him no? Paul, I don't care who takes care of the patient.
Right.
I know your group will take care of it.
Right.
So I was putting the pressure on me, and really, it didn't really matter to him.
Yeah, I found that too. It's really funny. I was talking to my wife about this week. My people pleasing is sort of from a connection standpoint. I'm a connector. I love people. And even holding somebody accountable at work for something that they were supposed to do and didn't do gets hard on me because I want to always have a good time and connect. But what I found is when I say, hey, this report was due yesterday, it's today, what's up? Rather than there being a disconnect, there's more intimacy created. Yeah. And we work through that thing together rather than having a big blow up or whatever I was catastrophizing in my head, right?
You're afraid of it, but it's not as bad as you thought.
It's not as bad. And the end result is...
It's better.
It's better.
Yeah.
Even yesterday, our producer, Devin, who's wonderful, we were supposed to take a picture, and I totally spaced it. And I missed it. And then I came up here, and I'm like, Devin, I am so sorry. We have a culture of accountability and da-da-da, and I just totally spaced this. It was on the calendar. I messed it up. What can I do to clean it up with you? And now we're better off from it versus me totally stepping over it or her not saying anything about it. Yeah. She's texting me, where are you?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's cool. Okay, switching gears to the OR a little bit.
Okay. So
I mean, there's so much we could dive into. I always love kind of miraculous miracle type stories. Have you? I would imagine, especially, so for folks that don't know, 3-4 months out of the year now, you're over in Africa. You want to share a little bit about that?
Yeah, I feel very called to help missionary surgeons have a break, because I know what it's like to have being a pastor, not having a break, being a regular surgeon and not having any partners to give you a break. These guys that work at Christian mission hospitals all around the world, they do this 12 months out of the year, and very rarely do people come over and give them a break. So I was fortunate enough to be able to learn what I call African surgery at Tenwick Mission Hospital in Kenya for 5 years. And
Shout out to our buddy, Dr. Russ White.
Russ White, yeah. And anyway, after that, I've been able to go and just relieve people that are really, working hard and just need a break. And so I've done that for the last, this will be my 18th year.
Wow.
So 18 years I've been doing that, and very rewarding. I usually go from 3, maybe 4, and sometimes with my family I would go for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
But I do that, usually 4 months a year.
And those mission hospitals there's a lot of prayer involved.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
When treating patients, right?
Absolutely.
What was that like? What is that culture? How is that culture different than a regular hospital here in Houston?
Yeah, I think it's quite different, honestly. Every person's prayed for. Every person's seen by a chaplain. You're never afraid to express your faith, which is incredible. But I've seen some incredible things happen. Even here in the States, I'll tell you a couple of stories if you want.
Mm-hmm.
You're talking about things that are just beyond you. We had this girl that came in one afternoon, and she came in by helicopter. She was injured in a car accident, and she had a huge belly, and she was pale as a ghost, and she was obviously bleeding in her belly, and her head didn't have a head injury. Her name was, I'll call her Teresa. But anyway, she rolled in there, and blood pressure was low, and obviously bleeding, got a blood count, it was very low, and she needed an immediate operation because she was bleeding in her belly big time. So I talked to her about it, and she asked me, she said, "Doc, am I going to make it?" And she was 19 years old, and I go, "Teresa, I do not know." I said, "I'm going to do everything I can." Took her back to the operating room, belly full of blood, spleen was injured, but after I took the spleen out, she continued to bleed. Make a long story short, she had an injury behind her liver. It's called a retrohepatic caval injury, where her main vein draining her liver was injured. And every time I'd pull the liver up to try to stop it, she would bleed, just exsanguinate. Got one of my partners in there, and he said, "Paul, there's nothing you can do about this." And so this is where I'm talking about the miracle, because honestly, I didn't know what to do. I had read a long time ago that in World War II, in instances like that, they would just pack the abdomen with some gauze and come back later and see if the bleeding would stop on its own. So I put some big gauze rolls in there and took her to the ICU, and I spent the night with her there in the ICU, and she would pour out 4 units of blood in 4 hours, and the next 4 units of blood in 4 hours. It just didn't look like she was going to make it. And anyway, I just remember that about 6 or 8 hours into it, the bleeding stopped just a little bit. And we're giving her blood, and then it stopped a little bit more. And pretty soon it had significantly dropped. And to make a long story short, over 200 units of blood later, blood and blood products, 4 operations later, 2 months later, Teresa left the hospital. And so I can tell you, Frost, I didn't stop that bleeding. I couldn't stop the bleeding. And, innovations in medicine didn't really stop that bleeding. I feel like God just saved her life and preserved her life. And it's interesting, I would read her my operative report, and the last line of my operative report said the patient was taken to the ICU in a critical condition with little chance for survival. And so every time she'd come to the clinic to see me after for a post-op visit, I said, "Teresa, read this. This is where you were." So, but in addition to that, because you prompted me with some questions, but I think the miracle that I see when I'm overseas now, honestly, Frost, is that you just put the simple things that you have. I don't have the most advanced, robotic surgery or laparoscopic surgery, but you put in a phrase from my faith journey, put your 5 loaves and 2 fish in Jesus' hands and watch and see what he does with it. And time again, I've just seen, we do basic good surgery with the limited things that we have on very sick patients with no ICU and 1 nurse to 30 patients at night, and somehow they make it, and
wow.
they do well. So that's very rewarding when that happens.
A friend of mine just came back from Tenwick like 2 weeks ago, and I was having lunch with him, and he also toured MP Shah, another hospital
Yeah.
there in Nairobi, and was talking about how professional Tenwick is, that it would rival anything in the
Right.
med center, and then the other local hospital, he was like, it was just total chaos.
Yeah.
There's people here, people there, and he was like, but it all works.
Yeah.
Like miraculously, that system works.
Yeah.
It might not be the most efficient.
Yep.
It might not be the hospital I want to go to if
Yeah.
I'm having something done, but it works.
Yeah.
And that's just people loving on people and helping people, and in that vibe. And I've also heard too, Americans we're all about time.
Yeah.
And then over there in Africa, it seems to be more off the chrono a little bit, and just more about, just sort of in a vibe, in a just sort of a different flow of life. Is that?
Yeah, there is a different rhythm to life in Africa, especially in the remote areas that I work. I mean, you things start when the sun comes up. Things stop when the sun goes down. There's a rhythm to life, and it's an easier rhythm, I think. I think it's a more natural, God-given rhythm.
Yeah.
But in the space of what I do, when there's 40 patients that come to the hospital for surgical assessment during the day, that can be hectic. That can be busy. So in the midst of the rhythms, there's also, I think the thing that you mentioned, though, is you can't take our Western mindset and put it over there.
Mm-hmm.
Not everything can be, a 20-minute turnover time in the operating room. It just doesn't work like that. And I think sometimes when I tell people all the time, don't go to Africa, especially in surgery, to try to teach at first. Go to try to learn. Because those guys, they know how the system works, and they know what works, and they know why that delay is there. And so I think you have to you have to lose your efficiency model.
Interesting.
In order to survive. Otherwise, you'll just be constantly beating your head up against the wall. And I've seen many surgeons who just can't handle it. They just can't handle they're used to being in high control, and they're used to incredible efficiency. Sometimes it just doesn't happen like that, but it works. It works.
So when you come, is it sort of refreshing to be over there in that environment for a couple of months? Is it like, you talk about getting quiet? As far as you just spiritually, is that a really cool time of the year for you?
Yeah, I usually go in the spring here, and it's usually the fall there. It's beautiful weather. It's cool. I love walking from the hospital at night. It's about 250 yards to the guest house where I stay, but I love to see the Milky Way. You can see it it's just very peaceful, and it's very, you feel like you're in touch with nature, you're in touch with God. So to me, again, I've said this several times, it's a sacred space for me because that's where I'm supposed to be.
You recharge your batteries there. Every year.
Even though I'm exhausted, I recharge my batteries.
Yeah, because you're working sun up to sundown. I mean,
yeah, it was this last trip. It was crazy. We normally average 30 patients on the ward that I watch, the male surgical ward, and because of some mining activity there was an influx of patients and people injured. We had, on an average for several days, had 64 patients. So to me, it was almost unmanageable. That's one surgeon taking care of 64 people day in and day out. That was busy. So it's not to say it's all easy.
Ooh, boy, no kidding. And what are you seeing, just kind of jumping into M3 a little bit?
Yeah.
So for folks that don't know, you started M3, I think around 9 years ago or so?
10. This is our 11th year.
This is your 11th year.
Yeah.
And it's a medical missions conference that you host here in Houston every year at Lakewood. That's where I got to know you. And,
exactly.
And I've made some great connections, which is part of the goal of that, is to connect others to others.
Yeah.
And in the medical mission global health space, what are you seeing just big picture in global health? Like, where are we headed?
Yeah, that is a great question. I just got back from a conference 2 weeks ago, and they made a statement there, I think, Frost, that really I'm pondering that there may be a lot of validity to that. They said the existing humanitarian complex that we've known for years is crumbling.
The existing humanitarian complex
that we've known for years is crumbling.
Meaning people that want to go help?
No, I'm talking about big picture where we've had aid in certain areas that now that aid's been cut.
Oh, like USAID type stuff?
Yeah, and it's a different space out there now as far as that's concerned. As far as, just the missions standpoint, I think I think there's just a constant need for people. I think, you know, there's such a need, and there's so few providers that actually go. The missionary numbers are actually going down. The needs are going up. So I think one of the reasons we started M3 is I just want people to know about the possibilities of using your gifts and skills in whatever field it is, medicine, IT, carpentry, plumbing, whatever. You can use those skills. You don't have to be a Bible teacher. You don't have to be a pastor, an evangelist, a Bible translator. You can use your skills to make a difference in global health around the world. So I just think the needs are there. I think again, in my faith, journey, it's the needs are great, the labors are few. We just need more people.
Wow. I, as you know, spent quite a bit of time. I think 10 or 12 years in now with an organization called Heart Gift that helps little kids with congenital heart defects get their hearts repaired. And our original model was to bring kids here to the U.S. Yeah. We had a great deal with Memorial Hermann and Dell's Children in Austin and hospitals in New Orleans and San Antonio, and that was great. It was cool. And every kid that came, I mean, these kids are terminal, and then they get to live another 50, 60, 70 years, and it was really, really fun. And then we started listening to some of the surgeons that said, hey, this is cool. We're going to keep bringing them. We're working every day. We're happy to do as many kids as you want to bring here. But, if you help build programs abroad, you can have a bigger impact, and cost per patient goes way down. Yeah. And so one of the things that we did is started funding a group going to Bolivia, and they would serve about 25 kids for the price of one here in the States. Yeah. And then that sort of led us into, got connected with our buddy Solomon and Russ White, and helped a little bit on the fundraising side with Tenwick. Obviously, Samaritan's Purse, I think Lakewood too probably helped with that as well. We did. And I've in that space, that building that self-sustaining model, and Russ took it to the next level to even train people and be a hub for all of sub-Saharan Africa. I see his project there at Tenwick as probably the most important, the most impactful in that congenital heart defect space thing going on the planet right now. Yeah.
It's amazing. I knew we were going to talk about this, so I did some research, and there's really two ways that people suffer from heart disease in Africa. You know this, but one is congenital. You just mentioned that you were born with a defect. Mm-hmm. Some of them are simple defects. It just takes a little patch to fix them, but it takes a skilled surgeon and bypass machine and all that, ICU. The other is rheumatic heart disease. Mm-hmm. And rheumatic heart disease is when you get a strep infection in your throat and it settles into your heart, and it damages the valves there. It either makes them constrict so that there's no blood flow, or makes them leak so that you can't get enough flow out to the body. So,
which is crazy. So my elementary school kids get strep throat at least once or twice a year, and if it's untreated, it can lead to heart surgery.
Exactly.
That's nuts.
Exactly. And I was looking up some statistics, and I think it was, I have them on my phone, but I think it's in Kenya, 1 in 7 people are impacted by rheumatic heart disease.
Wow.
That's an incredible number. And others said 14%. And so just incredible numbers of people. And so the need, I'll tell you a story. One time, Frost, I think I've told you this before, but I was over at Tenwick, and a team was coming, a heart team was coming. We were so excited. And so we had to screen everybody with an echocardiogram. So we were screening the kids, and there were some benches that were about as long as this table, and these little kids were sitting on it. And there were probably 4 benches with 6 kids on it, probably 25, maybe 30 kids there, and none of the kids were tall enough to reach the floor. Mm-hmm. It was the cutest little thing, but all of them they were blue. They had swollen legs. They were huffing and puffing for breath. And so we would take those kids and we would do echoes on them. And out of those 30 kids, we could choose 6 for surgery.
I know.
And so I think that's the reality of that particular problem in Africa. And that's why I so appreciate what Russ White's doing at Tenwick. He's training surgeons. I think the other real problem there and the opportunity there is we've got to prevent rheumatic heart disease. You've got to get the kids in elementary school and treat their strep throat. So I think it's a multi-pronged approach, but I appreciate what Russ is doing, because that is a huge need. And what's sad, and you know this as well as I do, but those kids die. I mean, those kids don't live long at all.
Yeah.
And it's terrible to have to tell mom that there's nothing we can do and the diuretics aren't working and the digoxin's not working and take your child home. So
It is terrible. And the flip side is one of the things I like and was attracted to about this space is it's fixable.
Yeah.
If you have a surgical repair, the vast majority of these kids will live.
Absolutely.
And there is a solution where in philanthropy, sometimes you can donate to something you don't really know, but you can go meet these kids.
Yeah.
You know, you can give them a high five and take a selfie with them and pray for them and all that stuff. And, you know, when thinking about heart surgery in general became, you know, a thing, you know, here in Houston with, you know, DeBakey and that whole crew, it was the 60s, I think. So we're about 75 years in heart surgery. And my hope and prayer is over the next 75 years that every kid born on this planet can have access to care. I coincidentally, so chat GBT and AI and all the stuff that's going on, for years I've been saying, does anybody have a global study on what's going on with CHDs? Like which country doesn't have programs, which one does? So every night for the last month or so, I've spent working on this report. I have a red light, yellow light, and green light system. So a country like Canada that has great programs has got a green light, and then like Kenya has a yellow light, right? And then somebody like
Zambia has red.
Zambia has red.
Right.
And so my thought is get this report out, which is so cool that I used AI to create this report. And I'm the guy that teaches martial arts all day. You know what I mean? I'm not even really in the medical space, but somebody like me can create this cool report and get it out there to the world and say, hey, let's focus on getting these yellow light countries to green.
Yeah.
You know, it's easier to go, if you've got a group that does 100 patients a year, it's easier to get them to 200 than it is from somebody from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
Right. And so I think just sort of knowing what's so and you know, these type of surveys and was even looking at creating an app and, you know, kind of a Facebook marketplace meets LinkedIn to sort of just help people connect and collaborate more, like, you know, through M3 that they do, just like an online M3, you know, like how do we do that? Have you seen any, is there stuff out there connecting folks online?
Not that I've heard.
Right.
Not that I've heard. It'd be great to connect them online about a particular subject like kids' heart disease.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. That, I think that could be, you know, everybody gets nervous about AI and I'm an optimist, so I think it's going to be cool and great. I'm sure there's going to be some bumps in the road, but I just wonder. I keep thinking, and I'm not a very smart computer person, but how can artificial intelligence help global health?
Yeah,
I'm hopeful that it'll speed up some of the process.
Yeah, I bet you're right. I don't know. I'm not an expert. I just read, and I don't know.
Right?
Yeah.
So what's, you know, M3, what you guys have had tremendous success over the last 10 years. What's next?
Yeah. Well, let me tell you a little bit about M3. I think what you said is so important. So many people want to help. They just don't know how to do it. They have a heart to make a difference. They have the resources to make a difference. They just don't know how, a legitimate way to invest. And so what we did at M3, we thought, there's the largest medical center in the world here. There's 11,000 beds in our medical center, just in the medical center. So many providers, so many experts, DeBakey and Cooley, you mentioned those people. What if we had a conference in Houston that brought together the opportunities for people in missions and medical missions in an environment where we have speakers from all over the world? So the primary purpose is to connect people. So I want people at Houston Medical Center who want to be involved in mission get to know Russ White, get to know Frost Murphy, connect with people, and then let them be inspired by people who are doing the work. You know, the people that speak at M3 are not people that have theories. They're people that are fingernails are dirty, they're knee deep in the needs of the world, and they're doing the work. And to me, that's inspiring when this next year we have Agneta O'Dara coming from
she's awesome.
Tenwick Mission Hospital, where she's a cardiac surgeon. You know, Agneta is inspiring to listen to her story. I mean, she is a village girl who made it big and one of the smartest people I've ever met. And now she is a heart surgeon taking care of pediatric hearts at Tenwick.
First female,
yeah. And, you know, Forbes magazine said that she's a force to be reckoned with, and she's the hope of the future of Africa.
That's so cool.
And I agree with that. We have to invest in the people of Africa. But number one is connect. Number two is inspire. people, by our speakers. But the third thing is we bring in about 75 mission organizations. These organizations are doing the work. They just need people to help them. So this is not about building the capacity of Lakewood to send people. This is about building the capacity of these organizations that need help. And we started it 10 years ago, and we've been very pleased with how many people have met, how many people have been engaged, how many people have gone to do missions for the first time. Some have gone long term, some have gone for a couple of years. So, it's been very inspiring.
Yeah. And is there room for growth? I mean, I know you got 75. Could you do can you get more folks involved?
We've got a big building. Yeah.
You got a big building?
Yeah. I think part of it is just engaging the local community and letting them know about it. And it's just a Friday night, Saturday night deal. So you don't have to travel. You don't have to take a long time off. And so I think getting the word out, just like this podcast will do, I think getting the word out is the most important thing, because the more people we can get engaged, I think the more people will engage in missions.
And are most of them local Houston groups, or are you got people traveling in?
Probably 30% come from elsewhere.
That's pretty great.
Yeah.
That's pretty great. Yeah. I mean, it's something worth coming in town for. Are there other big medical mission conferences out there?
There's another one in Louisville in November.
Okay.
And I've been to Louisville multiple times, and I just didn't see anybody from the Gulf Coast there. That's one of the reasons I said, let's bring this concept to Houston.
Got it.
To the biggest medical center in the world.
Yeah.
And so we spaced ours so that we're not competing with that conference in Louisville.
Nice.
That's in November. Ours is in February. So there are other conferences. I just finished one at Samaritan's Purse called Prescription for Renewal. Great conference if you're a medical professional, nurse, doctor, and you want to find the opportunities. SP and World Medical Mission have a lot of great opportunities.
And so at M3, just to kind of recreate what I thought I heard you say was, you've got a group. So if I was a nurse that worked in the med center and I wanted to get involved in some kind of medical mission trip overseas, but I don't know where to go, I can walk around and talk to people at various booths. That somebody might be a plastic surgeon that's going to Guatemala and they go 2 times a year, and I might go, hey, maybe I could help you guys out.
Exactly.
So there's an opportunity for people to connect that way.
Yeah, to get plugged in, and it may be for a 3-day trip, it may be for a 7-day trip. But it just gives you tangible ways. And the other thing, Frost, I'm really big on is I don't want you to go. I don't want these organizations that come. We vet them very carefully. We want to make sure they're doing the real work.
Okay.
And so, because if people are going to go with them, we want to make sure. And so Mercy Ships will be there. Mercy Ships is a classic. People don't know about Mercy Ships.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you get to meet with some people from Mercy Ships. And, Tenwick Hospital will be represented. The Pan-African Academy of Christian Surgeons will be. And then other opportunities for short-term, because a lot of people like me, they can't go for 3 months.
Sure.
But some people can, they can get 1 to 2 weeks, and you can make a huge difference in 1 to 2 weeks. Some people can take a month. They're scheduling their careers around a month off for global health.
Yes.
The other group of people that I'm very passionate about is retired people. A lot of providers retire at 65 years old, and there's a lot of tread left on those tires.
Sure.
And so there's a lot of wisdom and a lot of energy. And so I try to engage that group of people to say, hey, listen, go and teach and be a part of global missions at that particular stage in your career.
That's pretty sharp. One of the things, too, that I found, I do a lot with the Greater Houston Community Foundation. I don't know if you know much about those guys are involved, but I consider them to be sort of Houston's philanthropic headquarters, where they take on, say, whether it's homelessness or human trafficking, and coordinate philanthropic dollars with city dollars and mayor and county and disaster relief funds and things like that. And one of the coolest things I've got out of participating with those guys is I'm in the heart space, but I see how the human trafficking guys are approaching an issue, and then I go, oh, that's smart. How can I map that on to the heart space?
Exactly.
And I feel like that same vibe exists at M3, where I can connect with whether it's Mercy Ships or Samaritan's Purse or whoever, and it could be even at a board level. How do you organize your board? Do you have a finance committee? Do you have a mission committee? Yeah. So I feel like those hallway conversations, water cooler conversations, even at M3, it's just important to get in the same room with people that are, in a similar space, trying to solve similar problems.
For years, I didn't know anybody else was really passionate about medical missions. And then all of a sudden I met a group, my tribe. And then all of a sudden, that's what I tried to create here. People that have that passion but have no way to connect it with other people. I was going to tell you something interesting, though, Frost. Maybe 6 years ago, I had a round table, a luncheon before the conference, and I had all these ministries that were working in Malawi, and none of them had ever heard of each other.
Oh, wow.
So I put them at a table for lunch and said, guys, you got to meet each other.
Yeah.
And that's, they didn't know each other. They didn't know, and many of them were facing this exact same problems, dealing with the exact same government, exact same, economy, exact same. And all of a sudden they were going, how do you do it? Or let's do this together. And so that was really a treat. And I think that's one of the benefits of M3.
That lunch might be as powerful as the actual conference.
Yeah.
I've met so many great people. Project Cure, I got to know them. Now we're collaborating on some stuff. They send, containers full of medical supplies. That was just from sitting next to some folks at the lunch there. Yeah, man, those conferences are so important. And then you guys have breakout sessions as well,
we do,
right?
Yeah. We also educate in the breakout sessions. We'll have some great ones. We have several just great breakout sessions. We have, several of them on clinical medicine. We have some of them on taking care of the caregiver, on mental health.
What does that mean, taking care of the caregiver?
Well, I mean, there's a huge epidemic of burnout and compassion fatigue, and the suicide rates among surgeons is huge.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's just absolutely. So I think it's very important to try
I could see that.
to address that, and so we're going to address that. Agnetta's going to speak. We have a lot of great speakers this year.
Well, she's perfect person to speak to about that because she has a never-ending supply of people that need heart surgery there, and being able to manage her work-life balance, like we were talking about earlier. You walk around the best version of yourself, you're going to have a better impact than the 4-hour sleep version of yourself.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Wow. Okay, cool. So that conference is in February. And then what do you see long-term for M3? Just continue to grow and expand and get more people involved? Or?
I think so. I think my son's involved now. He's an attorney, and he's helping with the relief and outreach at our church, and he has caught the vision for M3.
Nice.
So our whole whole relief and outreach team is now part of the M3 team, and they're going to help raise the boat. It's going to be, I think, a better conference. And I think the foreseeable future, I'm very optimistic.
So you got 3 generations now.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. 3rd generation's there.
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's got to be fun. And fulfilling.
And just a little bit about my son. He was practicing in Pennsylvania, practicing law in Pennsylvania. And he felt the same thing that I did.
Really?
And after several years of practicing there, he moved and did our risk and compliance at the church for a long time, and now has moved over to relief and outreach.
So cool.
I have one question.
Yeah. Devin's got a question. What you got, Devin?
What if I'm not as certified as a nurse or a surgeon?
Yeah. What if you're just a person that's not certified as a nurse and you want to get involved and do something?
Well, knowing Devin and her logistical mind and her kind of understanding corporate, business side, people like you are invaluable, Devin. I tell people all the time, logistics, administration, plumbing, diesel mechanics. This team from our church, the IT team that came over and put in internet for the hospital, they've revolutionized the hospital. I wouldn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
I can take out an appendix, but I can't do that. These guys just took 10 days of their time. Lakewood paid for it. We were able to connect. Now we have instant access to the internet. And what that does, Frost, is that we now have digital x-ray. Lakewood bought the digital x-ray machine for them. I can look at an x-ray on a patient on my phone because of the Wi-Fi at the bedside 5 minutes after it's done at a mission hospital 14 hours from Lusaka. So those people have made a huge difference. So I tell everybody.
So the IT guys
huge
amplified what's happening there just from a couple weeks of IT work.
Yeah, and then I brought people to do leadership training at the hospital that I work at, and the administration is so grateful that we took an interest not only just in the surgical part of it, but in building their capacity there at the hospital. So I tell everybody, just come with an open heart and see ways that you can be involved.
Yeah, if you feel like if you're at all interested in the subject, just show up.
Absolutely.
And you'll find something cool to do there.
Absolutely. You'll find a niche.
You can't not find a niche there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think I'm somewhat of an example of somebody with no medical experience that's had an impact. So sort of my mantra, kind of the purpose-driven life type
Yep.
thought was, I exist to expand organizations that are making a positive difference on the planet.
Yeah.
And then so, when I ran across Heart Gift, I sort of have the same role, whether it's here at the gym or at a nonprofit or anything else I'm up to, is just, okay, this is great. How do we do more of it? Who do we need on the team?
Yeah.
What's next? And I found in the medical space that, like you said, these doctors have burnout and they're working their tails off, and they just need somebody to come alongside them and go, "Hey, man, you're doing a good job. How can we do more of this? What do you need? You need supplies. You need humans. What do you need? How can we help?" Or you'd like to connect. Well, I know this other guy that's got a need in Panama, and you speak Spanish, so maybe we take a trip to Panama and see what we can do down there. And it just takes somebody not in the medical space to be able to whether you're an accountant or every job out there, every profession out there there's room for him in this deal.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think too, Frost, what's exciting to me is the young people that are coming up now.
Mm-hmm.
They are passionate about making a difference with their lives. And, you can read the statistics and all the facts on the upcoming generation, but, they want to make a difference and they're passionate. And to me, one of the goals we have at M3 is to capture them at their young age. That's why I love high school students to come. I love college students to come because all they need is a seed planted in their heart to say, if Agneta could do that, maybe I could do something. Or if Frost could do that, maybe I could do that. So to me, I think the young generation coming up that's passionate about the global issues that are facing the world right now, it's very exciting.
And I know you're getting the word out through a lot of the local churches as well. That's really cool to see that most of the big churches here in town are all coming alongside you, and whether they're sponsors or sending people to the event. Is that the part of the outreach program?
Yeah, I think one of the things I wanted to do, I wanted this to be a cross-denominational effort. I didn't want to compete with people. I wanted them to come alongside. And, man, the churches have just rallied. I mean, First Presbyterian, First Baptist, I can go on,
Sure.
Woodlands Church. They've all just come, and they're a part of it. They help promote it. They bring people. They've locked arms with us. And that's, Frost, that's kind of rare and many times in certain cities. A lot of churches don't work together, but man, the churches have worked together beautifully here.
That's pretty cool. Are there any other groups in town that we should think about adding into the conversation as far as getting the word out, or, are there, I don't know, I'm just brainstorming, a sports team, or like I said, the Greater Houston Community Foundation, or just any other groups that we can think of to help?
That's where I need you. That's where I need Devin. You need to help us. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like it's having been to the event, it's such a cool experience. And like I said, I had a 5-minute conversation with someone that has translated into hundreds of kids getting heart surgery, right? And that's cool. Yeah. And so who wouldn't want to go be a part of that?
Yeah. I just say, just come and taste, come and see.
Come check it out.
And the other thing is pretty impressive when you see 75 exhibitors around that bowl, and and then all of a sudden you see 1,000+ people gathered that have real interest in global missions in some way. It's pretty inspiring.
Well, for me, guys like you are the real superheroes here on this planet. Doing the good work out there. A lot of people look up to actors and famous people, but I get excited when Russ White came to town. And I took him to Texas Children's and the Houston Community Foundation, and met with a few people. I'm driving Russ right around in my car going, man, I'm hanging out with Russ White today. This is pretty cool. Yeah. It's just the people that you get to meet is really cool.
Yeah, they're rock stars in their own element. Many of them behind the scenes. Like last year we had Jason Fader. He's a surgeon who came from Burundi. I don't know if you heard him or not, but Jason, about 15 years ago, went to Burundi, one of the neediest countries in the world, set up a surgical training program, and now has revolutionized the surgical care of the nation of Burundi. And this is just a regular guy, just doing good work. And so you're talking about heroes. Jason Fader's a hero. People like those guys that are giving their lives away, and it looks very different than what you could accumulate here in the States. They're accumulating none of that, but they're making a huge difference in the global health situation there in Burundi.
Well, super cool. Anything else you want to dive into before we wrap it up?
I don't think so.
Well, thanks again for being here. Thanks for being a good example for the rest of us, to listening to that call multiple times throughout your life and sharing with us what's that like. That helps us all sort of map on how we can do a better job of listening.
Yeah.
And then the impact of that is so cool. And thanks for all the late night phone calls and emails and long hours, whether it was in Africa or in meetings to try to figure out seating charts or whatever everything you have to do behind the scenes that nobody knows anything about, man.
Thanks,
you.
Frost. And I appreciate what you're doing. And Devin, thank you so much for producing this. So I've enjoyed it. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Bye, guys.